Welcome to Friday morning, A Course in Miracles. I'm Lisa Natoli, and I'm really happy to be introducing the awesome Bill Free today, who's in the house. Bill Free's in the house. So I'm just doing announcements and just getting us started. Welcome, live streamers. We live every single Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. And we just love that we come together to share these ideas about A Course in Miracles. And today, Bill is going to be sharing about the differences and the similarities of A Course in Miracles and non-duality.
Non-duality and A Course in Miracles. How are they compatible? How do you do them both?
Okay, how do you do both A Course in Miracles and non-duality? So that's going to be awesome. So just a couple of announcements. The first one is that James Twyman is doing a worldwide one-man show on St. Francis right now, and he is coming to New England on April 27th, and he will be at Vicki Thomas's house from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's a Saturday. We'll be there, and we would love for you all to come. And he may be here at Unity on the River. I'm not sure if anything has been set up about that. But April 27th, I also want to invite everyone to come to my retreat with Jennifer Hadley and Corinne Zupko. It starts this Wednesday night. It's in Hudson Valley, New York. And John Mundy's going to be there Wednesday night and Thursday. And then it's all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and half day Sunday with me and Jennifer Hadley and Corinne Zupko. And the focus is on healing and forgiveness. So one of the things I just wanted to introduce right now as one of the exercises that I'm going to present is something that comes from Workbook Lesson 80. And this is just mind-blowing because healing is so simple and we complicate it. Like we really just think that we have to go through all of these processes, but Workbook Lesson 80 from A Course in Miracles says, let me recognize this problem has been solved. So whatever problem you think you have, it has been solved. This problem has been solved. 5 words. That's your solution. So if your problem has been solved, sickness, pain, suffering, relationships, money, whatever you think your problem is, it has been solved. If it's been solved, how are you going to show up now? To me, that's the simplicity of healing. You step in. That's how time gets collapsed. But what everyone's doing is they're trying to solve their problem, fix it, heal it, understand it, recognize the cause of it. And they stay stuck in this place that is before the healing. The healing's already been accomplished. So that's what I'm going to be introducing. I'm also going to talk about money because I've been having a lot of private conversations in my B-School group about spirituality and money. So I'm going to be introducing that. And Corinne Zupko and Jennifer Hadley are just off the charts. So if you want to just be spontaneous and just join us there, it's a 4-hour drive from here. And it's in this just gorgeous big retreat center. So that is this coming Wednesday. And I just wanted to let you know that the Transformation Room from the Teachers of God Foundation is undergoing some awesome changes. And we're having what's going to be called the Presenter Series. It starts in April.
I just put the images up for everyone.
Okay, so the images are up on the chat board in the webinar. The live stream that you're watching. And it's going to have one presenter a month. So you're going to still get the 4 deliverables. And it's going to be Alan Cohen, Bill Free, Gary Renard, Cindy Renard, Cindy Renard's sister Jackie, who's awesome, Bob Rosenthal, Jennifer Hadley, Corinne Zupko, myself, Kelly Russell, who else? Jimmy Twyman, Freedom Cartwright, who we know as Kimberly Cartwright. And so that's going to start in April. So I just wanted to let you know that. And if you would like to be on the waiting list for when those doors open, go to teachersofgod.org and sign up for the wait list for that. So those are my announcements. And
This is such a popular topic, what I want to talk about today, that we have a full house of interest. Actually, I get a lot of emails. I got 4 emails yesterday that were asking about non-duality and different questions from A Course in Miracles. And one of the questions was, and if you're watching, you guys that emailed that in. Is that too loud? No? How is A Course in Miracles and non-duality compatible, or how do I do both? And in my understanding, in the things that I read, whether it's A Course in Miracles, Rupert Spira, Being Aware of Being Aware, Papa G from the Advaita, another one from Rupert, John Klein wrote the book I Am, Jeff Foster, The 7 Steps to Awakening, Francis Lucille, Nisargadatta, the Maharaj, and I mean there's hundreds of books that will tell you that it's not a this one, I think maybe the thing needs to be turned down some over here. So if I turn this down, test 1, 2, is that better? Okay. So the idea of non-duality and A Course in Miracles, it is essential that you have an understanding of non-duality, and not only an understanding, that you learn that it's what you are. You are the non-dual experience. It's when Jesus says in the Course that the last thing that he learned was to hear only one voice. How many in here only hear one voice? How many of the live streamers only hear one voice? I would say probably none of us. Almost none of us. And the reason is because we think we're this, and we are fixated on the objective experience of time and space, body identity, and it's just like last week Lisa made a statement that got a ton of emails for her, that at no single instant is the body real at all. And bodies have a real problem with that. Personal self-identity has a real problem with that. And even at the highest level, most of us would love it if this body would just go into this transparent, luminous light, and it still looks like me at 20 years old, right? So that's really it's kind of like the fantasy land where the mind that believes that it's separate goes in its identity as a person, as a body. And it is essential for us to have, if we're going to have an awakening experience that all of these amazing masters and sages and contemporaries and the guys that have been pointing the way for 50 plus years to enlightenment and awakening. You know, I used to think enlightenment was only for the guys like Muji or the masters of the Far East or the masters that are in India. And it's only from my own awakening and knowing the awakening of others that are just my contemporaries, they're you guys that have awakened from the dream of hypnosis, that believed that this world was real and true, and suffering the consequences or the seeming consequences of our own victim mentality. It's only from that where we move from that paradigm of understanding into, wow, I don't have to suffer. I'm doing this at my own hand. and then you realize that those old behaviors that you had, those old identifications, those traumas, those fear thoughts, those beliefs that you held were only held there by your own ignorance. Your own ignorance that they were actually running the show in the background of the unconscious mind. And you couldn't figure out why you did the things that you really didn't want to do, but they just seemed to happen. What? Oh, blah. Why did I say that? Blah. Oh. You know how when somebody gets you upset, and it's like you can't keep your mouth shut. You just have to say something because they're totally wrong, and you know you're right, or no, that's not what you said. You said this, and you got to be right in order to be happy. And then it comes out of your mouth, and then moments later you go, damn, why did I say that? Wish I hadn't said that. And it's because we're so fixed on the personal self-identity that we have to make a statement. We have boundaries. We gotta be right. And by God, I am right. I know I'm right. I've got it in writing. It's on a piece of paper that we both signed, and I'm going to let you know that I'm right. And all of those ideas keep us trapped as prisoners to our own devices, because you can't have peace in that when you're located there. And I did a webinar that was so popular. There was like 800 people signed up for this webinar that I did with Arthur and Freedom and Amy Torres. We did a webinar about a ton of people signed up for that. We had technology glitches, and we only got like a third of the way through some of the questions that were emailed in about non-duality and A Course in Miracles. And people had questions like these that didn't get answered. How do these paths fit together? And the biggest thing that I think we want to touch on is, okay, so what's it costing me for having the dualistic default? What's it costing me for just being okay with where I am? I'm a Course in Miracles student. I follow these other paths. I'm pretty comfortable. What's it costing me for not recognizing that there's a higher level for seeing? Well, it's costing you what Jesus calls in the Course. It's costing you the real world. It's costing you the constancy of your own Christ consciousness. It's costing you the embodiment of Christ mind. And if that's okay with you, that's fine. I mean, nobody really. You're the only one that it matters to. Is how high do you want to go on this ladder of awakening? And if you're happy where you are, just stay right where you are. There's nobody that's guilty about it or because of it. But Jesus describes he describes the experience of, well, he talks about beyond the body. He talks about the ladder to heaven. And the ladder to heaven, this is a lifetime journey. This is not something that we do for a hobby. This is for people who are all in for life. This is your life experience. This isn't something that you do sometimes, because if you don't want this above all things, then you're not going to have an opening so that the light comes in sufficient to have the direct experience that's offered. There's a direct experience offered. Jesus talks about it. He talks about in Workbook lesson 41. The first time in the workbook lessons he talks about reaching God. Has anyone in here not reached God? Is there anyone in here that hasn't had a direct experience reaching God? Anyone out there hasn't had a direct experience reaching God? I would say that everyone has. In some way, we've all, because what gives us the taste, the desire, the pull to want to know more, to want to be seekers of truth, and then after we realize that the truth is true and we become the lovers of truth and it's all we want, we just want to know more and it's like nourishment to the soul. Well, most of us only have a glimpse of what's available to us, and it just expands and it gets more and more, and the humanness of us relaxes into that and becomes less and less, and our experience becomes more peaceful, more content. We're happy about stuff that used to really upset us, and Jesus says that that's going to happen. He tells us that that's going to be our experience. But there's one that is so grand. This actually is in the book of Revelation a little bit, and it just, Christians get their mind blown from the book of Revelation is so bizarre. I've seen books written about, the rapture, and people will be driving a bus. There'll be a bus load of people, and the bus driver gets raptured out of his driver's seat while 50 people are in the back of the bus. What's going to happen for the rapture? Well, the rapture happens to us in our mind. We are raptured from the belief that we're separate from God. We're raptured from the identity of the person, and we're just transmuted. We're not in this, we have a knowing that we're not a body, that this isn't true, that this isn't our reality. And the reason that we think that we never age until we look in the mirror is because what we are doesn't age. What we are is eternal. And that's why we always, if I'm with guys that are 18 years old, I'm going to try to outrun those suckers in this 65-year-old body. And I might have a few stumbles and falls along the way, but in my mind of Christ that is eternal, I'm the same as them. And I'm the same as you. And also in that mind of Christ that can do all things, I'm not even a man. I'm not a man. I don't have an age. None of those things exist. And that is a direct experience that I get to have. I have it right now. I have a knowing of it. It's not a concept anymore. And it's because the ladder to heaven is experiential in your understanding that becomes a known experience. And this, what I'm getting ready to read, is a little bit in the book of Revelation. And it says, the world that shines with love, in the purple book. In the blue book, it's called the Attainment of the Real World. And for me, I only want the real world. I only want the love of God to ooze out of this one so that it catches like a contagious disease onto everyone that I run into. And not because I proselytize them or I want them to be like me. I want them to know and have what I know to be true. I want them to have this experience of freedom that surpasses my own understanding. Here it says, and if you can just, if you guys are watching, if you're not driving, and if you're sitting here, just close your eyes and listen to these words. Sit quietly and look upon the world you see and tell yourself, the real world is not like this. It has no buildings, and there are no streets where people walk alone and separately. There are no stores where people buy an endless list of things they do not need. It is not lit with artificial light, and night comes not upon it. There is no day that brightens and grows dim. There is no loss. Nothing is there but shines and shines forever. This world you see must be denied, for sight of it is costing you a different kind of vision. You cannot see both worlds, for each of them involves a different kind of seeing and depends on what you cherish. The sight of one is possible because you have denied the other. You can open your eyes now, and I just, that's just such a revealing statement. The real world, the attainment of the real world. Excuse me. That's such a revealing statement. I mean, that whole picture. Does anyone have that experience that I just described? The picture that I just described is the world of Christ mind. It's the world that is really, the Course points to it with Christ vision. It points to it in Beyond the Body. It talks, there's another whole page that's called Beyond the Body. And you have glimpses of it and what's called the holy instant. These are experiences that are available to us when we look beyond appearances. And the reason that non-duality is so important in this is because duality sees the world of form. Duality is focused, its attention on objective experience, the objects of experience. And that's not a bad thing. The objects of experience, the activity of the person is not a problem. It's when it's understood that awareness, the awareness of all object of experience, all objects, is not specific. And I've said this before, if you're looking at this wall right here, and you're just looking up here, gazing at the wall, or look in the room over to your left and just gaze at the room and don't specifically pull out a color, a label of a painting, molding, a wall, an object, but you can give what Jesus calls in the Course, in those first 75 workbook lessons, he's teaching us to gaze. He tells us several times to just gaze and look at this like a processional parade going by. And the reason he's telling us that is because he wants us to see, but not with the body's eyes. He wants us to see in the first chapter of the Course, he talks about the spiritual eye. And the spiritual eye is what looks beyond form into the knowing of experience. And that spiritual eye is the way that we see and know the real world while we're having a physical experience with the body. It's the same thing that Jesus talks about in Cameo 27 of the Purple Book, when he says that the activities of life will happen. There'll be chaos, there'll be the storms of life will happen, and you will stay right in the quiet center. You're staying right in the quiet center while all of that stuff is going on, knowing that you are what God is, that you are, there's no place where God ends and you begin. And it's like God is the ocean and you're but a current within the ocean. You don't have to look for the water because you are the water. You don't have to look for God because you are God. And the only problem, the sticking point that we have is that we've gotten so fixated by identifying as the person that we've veiled our knowing relationship with what God is. We've put it, we ignore it. We ignore knowing what God is. And knowing what God is available by just asking yourself, am I aware of this experience? Am I aware? Is there an awareness of the experience that I'm having right now? And if there's an awareness that's present, and you can't not have awareness. When you are driving here, and you're driving, what's changing lanes? What's giving you there's an intelligence, and it's not the brain. The guys that think that time and space is the end and the beginning, they think it's the brain that's telling us all of these things. The brain is just a function of the mind, and the mind is a function of our true self awareness. And awareness is the reason that we can drive to a location, and when we get there go, how did I get here? I don't even remember driving here. And the awareness is what tells the body that it needs to go to the bathroom or breathe or it's hungry. It's all of those things are the functions of our true nature that has an intelligence that's not of time and space, and it's not of form. When we read the Course, you know how what I just said, Jesus says in the Course that he says that to give this, he's the higher shopping service, and to give your specifics to him. Or he says, he uses give this to me a lot, or give it to God, or give it to the Holy Spirit. All of those are dualistic pronouns that are keeping us trapped, keeping us separate from our true nature, our true self. Because if you think of Jesus as being separate from you, like he's there and I'm here, or I need to give it to him, you have separated. Even though we're following his instructions, that's the beginning. That's just the very beginning of what the Course wants us to know, because he ultimately wants us to let him go as our teacher, so that because we're connecting with our source, which is the same as what Jesus' source is. There's no place where he starts and where he ends and we begin, just like there's no place where God ends and we begin. And what I'm finding myself doing more as a default now is when Jesus says me, I am giving it to this awareness where I know that that's where Jesus is too. When I think of God and I give something to, I'm thinking of God presence, I'm able to go into this place of awareness that knows that God is in this presence. God is in this place. I'm able to go into, when I think of the Holy Spirit, I used to say, give it to the Holy Spirit. And I would use this movement of like, I'm here and the Holy Spirit's there and I'm giving it to the Holy Spirit mentally in my mind. But no longer do I need to do that when I can stand here and be just, I can be what I am as the Christ consciousness, the embodiment of what Christ is. That's what awareness is. Awareness it's so subtle, because the background of experience, awareness, is always on. And when I make a move forward, I take credit for it. I don't bring awareness with me. I let the body say, oh, look what I did. I move forward. I'm holding this book up right here. I leave awareness in the background. But the truth is, none of this happens if awareness isn't responsible for it first. And in the workbook lesson, in the workbook lesson 41, I'm going to be talking about that in the presenter series. It's such a good workbook lesson, and it's so perfect for the setup for what I'm talking about right now. Because in workbook lesson 41, it's the first time. It's after it's after the holiness lessons. That's another place where, when you understand that you are the holiness, you are holiness itself. And my holiness envelops everything I see. Now that comes in to a place in the mind where you can connect with. And when you say to yourself that my holiness envelops everything I see, and then you allow that holiness to go out and capture this painting and that wall and this body called Bill and all objects of experience, now your holiness is connected to your I am. It's connected to your Christ presence, to your true self. And from that place of holiness, you do see the real world, because you're seeing the real world in your mind's eye. That's your spiritual vision. That's your spiritual eye, is seeing without the body's eyes. This is why in A Course in Miracles, Jesus says so many times, close your eyes. Do this with your eyes closed. Why does he say do that with your eyes closed? Because he wants you to close off your visual perception and get closer. Bring it in closer, because you are present and aware with the body's eyes closed, and that closes off one of your sensory perceptions, so that what you are as aware presence, you're still aware of your experience, you're aware of thoughts, feelings, emotions. If you didn't have any eyes, if you could never see, you would still be present and aware of experience. And you wouldn't be filtering it with visual perceptions and objects of experience, but you would have this knowing of your experience. And that brings it closer. And that's why Jesus says, and when I say Jesus, I'm just going to refer to, that's why this awareness that is coming to me, it's coming to us in the symbol of the man named Jesus. It is not separate from awareness itself. Jesus was a man who remembered God and saw the face of Christ in all his brothers. That's what, so Jesus was no different than us. He remembered God and only saw God in everything he sees. Awareness gives you that. Your holiness gives you that. And when he says in this is so good. In Workbook Lesson 41, it's the title of it is God Goes With Me Wherever I Go. God goes with me wherever I go. Why? Because I can't go without me. Wherever I am, God is. So God goes with me wherever I go. Can I embody that? Yes. We can all embody that, because our awareness never leaves us standing by itself. Our awareness goes with us wherever we go. And in that knowing of the experience, we can experience God wherever we go. And when we have the understanding that we are the holiness of God, that we are the presence of God, wherever I am, God is, we can include everything. We can include all objects of experience, even that the body's eye sees, because we've opened ourselves to knowing that God is separate from nothing. God is in this cup right here. God's in this water that's being... God is in everything that I drink. God is in my mind. And right here it says, he said, there will be only one long practice period today. This is on Workbook Lesson 41. God goes with me wherever I go. In the morning, as soon as you get up, if possible, sit quietly for some 3 to 5 minutes. Who has that practice in here where we sit quietly from some 3 to 5 minutes? How about out there? How many have? So if you're if you're not having a practice of sitting 3 to 5 minutes, give yourself just a minute and begin to get accustomed to the quiet presence. Because the mind that thinks that you're a body, it doesn't want that. It wants you to stay active with your problems and the projects that you're working on and your human identity, so that you don't have the full experience of your Christ presence, of the love that you are. You're distracted by the human condition. And so he says it hundreds of times in the workbook lessons. It's not just an idle mention. It's a lot. And the reason that he gives us these instructions, and this is our own Christ presence awareness, come to us in the form of A Course in Miracles in the name of Jesus, to illuminate us so that we can go home before the body dies, so that we can have the heaven experience on earth right now, not later. And there are some conditions that we have to be willing to do to escape from the tyranny of the devices of the mind that we thought was real. And those methods, they're so easy that we forget them. They're so simple that we don't want to do them. Sit down for 5 minutes? Hell no, man, I got stuff to do. I can't sit for 5 minutes. I'm busy. And I'll get so busy on a project, I'm on a Zoom call. Cindy, if you're watching, thank you for the way you do that, because she reminds me to pause. She says, can we just pause for a couple minutes? And, even though I'm the teacher often, I am also the student all the time. I forget to eat, right.
I'll leave for 6 hours and come back. I'm like, who's there for lunch?
Nothing. I get so fixed on a project, I forget to even pause. And someone reminds me to pause. And when Lisa comes home, like she just said, you may not have heard this, sometimes she'll be gone for 6 hours and I'll just be sitting in the same chair. I won't eat for 6 hours. She'll say, did you eat? And I'll go, no. But then I'll take that as a clue. Okay, pause, close the computer, and go sit down and have something to eat and talk. And I do that. I like the signal comes in. Okay, shut it down. Go and pause. And what I do every morning and most evenings before I go to bed, I definitely spend 30 minutes to an hour every morning, but I spend at least 10 minutes just doing nothing, sitting quietly with just being aware. And actually that starts before I put my feet on the floor in the morning. I just come into the recognition of awareness, because that, my friends, that is the recognition of enlightenment. That is the recognition that Bill, will step back and let him, awareness, presence, God, holiness, lead the way when I put my feet on the floor. So that way my day it starts out with putting the leadership of the heart first, putting the leadership of spirit before the leadership of the flesh that thinks it has a human experience that needs to handle everything. Because when the mind that thinks it's separate is in charge of my activities, I make a ton of mistakes. I do stuff that I don't need to do, and I don't pay attention to the stuff that I should be doing. And I do more than I actually need to do to stay busy when I could do less and have more done. It just doesn't make sense to be following the leadership of the mind when the spirit is so amazingly intelligent. We have, and this is the other thing. So in Workbook 41, in this lesson that I was reading, Jesus says, from time to time you may repeat today's idea, God goes with me wherever I go, if you find it helpful. But most of all, try to sink down and inward, away from the world and from all the foolish thoughts of the world. Sinking down and inward is awareness. Sinking down and inward is just being aware, but don't touch the thoughts, feelings, emotions, experiences, beliefs. Just stay in presence. And you know what that looks like. Everyone knows what that looks like. It's just being aware, because you're aware when there's a thought. You're aware when there's a distraction. You're aware when there's a fear experience, like a feeling, a sensation. You're aware when something hurts. You're aware of all experience. And sinking down and inward is just that still presence, that quiet place of stillness. And in that stillness is the intelligence of the universe. It's where all of the great artists, all of the great inventors and creators and amazing intelligence that comes through people that are just, they're just like extraordinary musicians or sculptors, or they have this download. It's because they've connected with that intelligence that is of the universe. And that intelligence is not of time and space, and it's available in the stillness. That's why when we rest in the stillness, and any kind of activity that's happening, any kind of situation in your life, whether it's financial, relationship, health, Course in Miracles, confusion, this or that, doesn't matter. Sit in the stillness and allow that thought, feeling, emotion, belief, allow it to just rise up as noticing it. And if you think you have choices to make, bring the choices, the perceived choices, into that space of presence, of just that stillness. And I guarantee you, I want you to come and tell me if this doesn't work every time, your answers will follow that. Your divine inspiration will follow that stillness. It'll come to you and, oh, I know what to do. Damn, I got a download. Let me write this down before I forget it. Or someone will come up to you and say, all of a sudden, out of the blue, someone will come up to you and say, hey, what do you think about this or that? And it'll answer your problem. It'll be the answer to what you were wondering. Why? Because you stepped into the stillness, which is the power of the universe that involves the mind of God. All the intelligence of the universe is right there for you, giving you that solution. It says you are trying to reach past, in this sinking down and inward, away from the world and from all the foolish thoughts of the world. It says you are trying to reach past all these things. You are trying to leave appearances, that's the objects of experience, and approach reality. That's the real world. That's what I started talking about the attainment of the real world. It's right here. We can have that, and we can watch Bill do his thing. We can watch Jen. Jen can be having a great time watching Jen do her whatever she's doing. Or Lisa's watching Lisa. Damn, look at what she's doing. You know, it's so much more fun and it's not the observer, it's the presence of God I am that's watching the activity of humanness and not being drawn to it, not being giving so much attention to it that it owns it. But it's just an experience in time and space. It's just occurring. No big deal. Whatever happens, Byron Katie would say, I don't mind. Whatever happens, I don't mind. It says, this is the first time this is stated in the course, in the workbook lesson, it is quite possible to reach God. So in this state of stillness, quiet presence, 3 minutes in the morning, a 5-second pause, we're reaching God. And God is not like God. God, you know, God is not this guy. God is presence. God is like he, and it's not a he. It's this space that surrounds everything. You know, if this roof wasn't here and these walls weren't here, and this person that identifies as Bill, if all of this stuff were laid down, God would still be here. We don't depend on this to know. And not only that, I'm right there. I'm still here. I'm right here in the midst of all of this. I know it's mind-blowing, but this is true. It is quite possible to reach God. In fact, it is very easy. Isn't that amazing? It's very easy to reach God because it is the most natural thing in the world. It's the most natural thing in the world to just pause and reach God. So I just want to encourage everyone. I want to encourage all of you that are watching that if you're not giving yourself the gift of pausing or having some quiet time in the morning or whenever, especially if your peace is ever disturbed or you ever have a situation in your life where you need answers, what happens when we go in that quiet place is the duality is dissolved in the presence of the light that you are. And you are so powerful. You are a being of light. And you are so powerful that you're just staying quiet and still, and you're connecting to source, which is your natural state. It's like the current in the ocean plugging into the ocean. So it just needs to be acknowledged to make the connection. And from there, whatever thoughts or concerns rise up in front of that, you're shining a light on to the duality, to the idea that our will is separate from God, to the idea that there are choices. And what remains is the intelligence of presence informs us what our next move is as a person. There's an informing that takes place instead of a doing or a thinking. And of course, the person is going to step forward and take credit for it, because that's what we do. And we think how smart we are, and we want to tell ourselves how brilliant and amazing we are, right? But it's coming from what we truly are, which is God presence. There's another workbook lesson that is one of my favorites, probably yours too. Workbook lesson 125. In quiet, I receive God's word today. In quiet. And that's the same principle of just being in that stillness. Allowing yourself to be quiet in the stillness. The idea that people are wondering that I mentioned that I got 4 emails yesterday from people that were our course students that are watching my book club, my book study club, and watching the different topics that we're talking about. Most of it is awareness, and some people think that Bill is just all about awareness. That is true. That is always going to be true. It's something that I know is if it's not true, I mean, awareness is the closest I can find to the Christ consciousness, to my own identity, and it's closer to me than my breath, and it's an experience that no one is excluded from. No one is. My animals are not excluded from it. I don't know about trees, but I imagine the plant kingdom is connected to awareness, because there's proven that they have had electromagnetic equipment hooked up to plants, and had someone think about lighting a match and burning a leaf or doing something to a plant, and had a register of the vibration frequency change from the plant. So I imagine that it's not just, even though, I mean, these are minerals, products of trees, and metal products are all minerals. There's probably an awareness there too, because I remember when I had that rock experience in Portugal, I could tell, it's like I could feel that this rock was seeing itself through these eyes, and then it moved to a plate, a ceramic plate, a wooden table. It was like I entered into this realm of connectedness that was somehow consciousness was connecting with form. And it was not separate from that form, and it was somehow connected to it. I don't know how it works, but I feel, and I've said that, mosquitoes are aware. They're aware that they're landing on your skin, and they're putting their little needle in there so that they can suck your blood. There has to be an awareness. They wouldn't be able to do that stuff if they weren't aware. Here, they smell the blood or the body or the skin or something that tells them that they're going to find a place to land, and there's an awareness even of those little insects. So the idea of how important the non-duality and A Course in Miracles is, it is really important that we have this understanding of the non-dual. Getting into a non-dual language, I think, would be helpful for most people. And in the Course, it refers to God, Him, you, we, I, me, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, your brother, mighty companions. All of these things are dualistic languages that are helping us to understand how the mind works in time and space, and how to release the mind from time and space. And for a time, it's very helpful to have understanding, especially, when we know that Jesus did it all. That's why everyone, I would say 95% of the Course students that I know, they totally connect with Jesus. And I still do. I still connect to that symbol, to that, and also to his leadership. But I know it's not a him. And I'm getting more and more knowing that that connectedness that I have with that symbol called Jesus is not any different than the connectedness that I have to my own awareness of my own Christ experience. Because that has to be, there can only be one. There can't be me and Jesus and still have oneness. There can't be me and the Holy Spirit and still have oneness unless I realize that there is no place where that one ends or that one is separate from what I am. So when we think about God as God, how many in here think of God as being like separate from you with using the word? No one? Everyone feels like God is the same as what you are. That's awesome. Linda's got her hand up. Is that true, Linda?
God?
That God is separate from you? Or did you just put your hand up because I
I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, all right. Well, that's honest enough. The idea of non-duality and A Course in Miracles is becoming more and more common to most people. How about you guys? Is everyone in here pretty comfortable with the idea that I'm talking about today? Anyone have any comments or questions about it that they want to share? No? Linda?
Well, I was thinking about what if if you're so good at this, right? Would you want to be a rock? Could you, it's all about desire. What do we want? So, could you give up your being, because we're all one? Could you become a rock and be okay? And
yeah. I feel I could.
Yeah.
I am a rock.
Yeah.
I feel I could be okay with that, because
you're a rock.
No, it's true. It's true. Because am I having fun in this human experience?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I am absolutely having a
It
blast
doesn't matter what you're doing.
in the human experience,
Yeah.
and I'm totally okay with a rock. Why not?
Build a rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jen, come on up.
But the only thing I have to say about the rock is then you don't have the mind, you don't have the brain. So our brain is physically part of problem solving and intelligence, so that we don't walk into the street and get hit by a car and things like that. So you would lose that if you're a rock. You could still be oneness, but I guess it's along the lines of you saying you're enjoying your human experience.
Yeah.
Because the brain is giving you opportunity to use the intelligence to have activities and so forth.
Right. Well,
Yeah, I just wanted to say about that, because to me that is actually a stumbling block, the idea that we have a brain and the rock doesn't have a brain, because what the Course is really saying is all living things. So there is life, which is intelligence. It has zero to do with the brain. So Jesus says, you think you have a brain, you think the brain thinks, you think you have eyes, you think your ears can hear. This is the difficulty. But the brain, there is no brain, there is no thinking. There is life, there is intelligence, there is awareness, which is, like when you said that, Bill, that's like about the tree. Of course, because there's all living things.
right.
So I am one, like you said, if I take the body away. So if we took all the bodies away in here, there is only oneness. There's not separateness from here, but it looks like it here. Oh, you're over there and you're over here and you're over there, distance. Your distance is closer to me than Bill's distance. That's a problem. But awareness takes that all away. It's just a recognition. Life is, God is.
Well, and to take that one step closer, if Bill's not here, isn't awareness still having an experience with each one of you? Isn't awareness still having this total experience of? And actually, I was reading in the Course this morning that the reason that the bodies came in was to give an ability for us to notice what we did so that we can undo what we did. The reason that the world, that the bodies came into the world was so that we can undo miscreation, so that we can undo the fear thought that created everything. And this goes back to the Big Bang, where the world came into existence some million years ago or whatever. But the idea that I stop when the body dies, or I stop when I become a rock, God, is still experiencing everything through whatever is happening, through trees, through all of creation. And when this one, there's an idea in my mind that I stop thinking when the Bill dies. I stop having an experience when Bill dies. Is that true? It's only true for the mind that thinks it's Bill, but it's not true for the mind of God that we all are and share and are one with. So it's much bigger. We think that we're this body, and it's important that this body keeps thinking and having this human experience. But that's the mind that thinks it's separate that's having the human experience. The truth of the matter is, we are pure love, and that scares the mind that that thinks that it's separate. It's forgotten its source, and that's where the fear comes in. That's why so many people want to live, want the Course to give them the happy dream experience. They want to have the happy, and we all do too. I'm having a happy dream. I also know that the dream isn't real. I also know that at some point, I think it was within the last 2 years, that I have had an awakening experience where I realized that none of this is true or real. And in that quiet space that is just content and whatever happens, I don't mind, that's available more and more. It doesn't mean that I don't get triggered on things, because when I give the objects of experience, when I focus my attention on activity of being a person, whether it's a project that I'm working on, or going on to see my family, or a connection with Lisa, or something that I'm doing for the foundation, when I fix my focus on the objects of experience, I lose myself as being. I lose myself as awareness when I take a fixed position on that. And it's only in the quiet stillness that I practice, and I use the word practice, but it does require an undoing. It does require an unconditioning, so that you can have the object of experience and be in awareness and have your relationship conversations and have your business communication and beyond, and also include it all. And this is what I'm learning. This is what I'm understanding, and I feel is being developed now, is the encompassing of all of the objects of experience in a non-dual way. I am not separate from you. I am not separate from you. I know this. I am not separate from you. There is nothing that I am separate from. And my holiness envelops all living things. My holiness envelops all things. And when I see you as a woman, as a man, as something that needs to be fixed, something that needs to be changed. I have taken myself into the objects of experience. I've labeled you in time and space, and I've made myself identify with that. But when I'm in this place, this new place of seeing with the spiritual eye that Jesus talks about, and I think if you go to the first, it might be in the first chapter, in the very beginning of the Course, he talks about spiritual vision and the spiritual eye. This spiritual eye is the knowing what you are. It's Christ's vision. It's what he terms Christ's vision. That's why he says that Christ, the one condition that is required for Christ's vision is that you do not see your brother as a body. Which means that when I'm addressing you, if I'm, and this is why quiet stillness is so important. Because if you're not practicing quiet stillness, you're not transmitting in that space of presence and oneness, so that when you have an experience with another body, so that when you have an experience in time and space, your experience envelops that experience. You are one. And whatever happens, there might be a conversation that's happening, there might be a dialogue, there might be a disagreement, but you're checking in with that holiness all the time. It's your new default. And your holiness is keeping you calm. You're not agitated. You're not upset. And also that holiness comes with a certainty of purpose. It knows what to say. That's why Jesus says that I will be informed what to say, where to go, what to say to whom. And it's because you are sufficiently embodying Christ consciousness to the point where it is what you are. It's the way you're showing up in time and space, and you're not waiting. You don't have to wait for this to go. You don't have to wait for this to go away. You're embodying the experience of your own wholeness, and you're including your brother and your sister in everything that you do. It's a transmission that occurs. It's a spiritual transmission. It's our embodiment of Christ consciousness. And that's what our conference calls in the Living in Purpose are talking about. That's the theme of this year, is the embodiment of Christ consciousness. And if you guys are in Living in Purpose and you're not joining us on those calls, they're on the first Tuesday or Thursday of the month. And if you're not in Living in Purpose, I think we're doing a webinar to invite you into Living in Purpose, April 23rd. And so that's just an idea to offer to everyone. And I think we're out of time this morning, and we're out of time for you guys live streamers. Thank you for being with us today. I hope that was helpful for you guys that were wondering how to do A Course in Miracles and non-duality. It's really essential. It's essential that you move to the place of non-duality, as that's what the Course is pointing you to, is that you're not separate from anything. The Course is most effective in helping you relate to and connect with your own devices of cause and effect, so that you can let them go and have the experience that it points to, which is the embodiment of Christ. That I am as God created me, as your natural state of your everyday activity in time and space. So thank you all for joining with us. Thank you, live streamers, for being with us. We're going to stand and close